Hi, so this could be a short summary of life in modern Britain, particularly focusing on Britishness, identity and migration, all part of paper 2, section A for the AQA GCSE exam paper. So what we're going to talk about is a couple of areas. First of all is Britishness. So what does Britishness mean? And essentially it's a belief of those who live in the UK. They have a shared set of values which they generally accept and agree upon. And these might include elements of fairness, justice, equality. But it is a very complicated notion, Britishness, and I'm going to kind of explore that in a second. Part of this is integration as well. One of the key elements of British identity, British values, British society is this element of integration, that we accept and we have a very prominent level of diversity within our society. We're multicultural, which is my next concept here. And again, we often have a lot of differences in terms of identities and genders, ethnicity, sexuality, the whole range of diversity in our society. And that's what brings and makes our society multicultural, in which these differences are kind of shared in the space, and there are obviously people who live side by side despite different backgrounds and identities. So first question is, what is Britishness? Now, it's a very difficult concept to mention, as I sort of said earlier. Britishness is a combination of a number of things. So it's history, it's culture, it's music, diet, political system, sort of the monarchy. Obviously, at the moment, time of recording, obviously the Jubilee is taking place. So again, there's a lot of celebration of British culture, British history, and the monarchy. So Britishness is a very complicated ideal because it combines so many different things, and so much of British history, culture, fashion, religion, everything is there. Now, when asking the British survey or social survey attitudes, they asked people what they felt was the most important thing about being British, and the answer you can see here is speaking English, being a citizen, having respect for laws, politics, living life in Britain, and being born in Britain. These were kind of some of the things that were seen as generally more prominent as making someone British. What's also worth noting that with this idea of Britishness, the Racial Equality Survey, which was conducted sort of 10 years prior to this, went round the UK and asked different elements like Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England, what they felt was their identity. So within Scotland and Wales, white and minority participants often were more likely to identify as Scottish or Welsh rather than British. Whereas in England, white English participants might have perceived themselves first as English and then as British as a second, while minority participants often saw themselves as British rather than English. And they saw English being something generally reserved exclusively for white people. Now, with this idea of Britishness, what we've got to remember here is British values. So in I think it's 2009, David Cameron said that multiculturalism and the social cohesion in the UK had failed. He concluded the UK needed a clear sense of national identity that was open to all, and he introduced this phrase of British values. And this was developed, and then in 2014, this was introduced and rolled out and was developed and taught in schools. Now, these values are not unique to Britain. They're not specifically British, but they generally reflect the values of what is seen as British. And they include things like democracy, rule of law, individual liberty, and mutual respect and tolerance. As I say, not unique to Britain in any means, but these were seen as kind of core values that were important for British society. And on the notion of Britishness, we can't forget to mention citizenship, which is the idea of how you become a British citizen. So for many people, if they're born in the UK, you automatically are granted citizenship. However, if you're not born in the UK, you can apply for it. And this might be through marriage, it could be through living in the UK for a certain amount of time, it might be through completing the citizenship test on life in the UK. So there are different routes to gaining citizenship. Now, with all this idea of Britishness is a big part of identity. So when it comes to your personal identity, that's how you define yourself. And being British might be one element of your identity. Now, identity is very complicated. There's lots of different elements. So you may hold multiple identities, which is different identities for different situations or different elements of your identity is made up of different things. You may hold group identities where you are part of a particular group. So again, whether you belong to a particular social class, whether you belong to a religious group, whether you belong to a sports group, that would be your group identity. National identity might be based on your country, your citizenship, where Britishness and your British identity may come back in here. And you might also hold a global identity based on participation of a particular group, religion, sports, interests. So you may hold an identity which is beyond the UK, and that might be linked to, again, religion, sports, music, and that would be a global identity. Now, along with Britishness, identity, we also need to think about migration. Migration is the movement of people around the UK, around the world. If you move from one country to another for at least a period of 1 year, you have migrated. And immigration is the act of someone moving into a country. So immigration into the UK if you move in. An immigrant is someone who moves from one country to another. You might find migration is just the movement of people around the world. What's missing from that list is emigration. So if people leave the UK or leave a country, they emigrate out of their country. And net migration is the difference between the two, people coming in and out. Now, the reason people migrate, there's lots of reasons for it, but generally push factors that cause people to emigrate, to leave, either exit on emigrate, might be lack of safety, high crime, drought, flooding, poverty, war. And the pull factors that pull them into a country, that cause them to immigrate into a country, could be generally the opposite of those. So high employment, wealth, better services, better climate, safe, politically stable. Now, migration and immigration into the UK is a really positive thing. It's an essential thing, despite what some newspapers and some sort of political figures may tell you. So arguments that say immigration is good would be things like between 2004 and 2015, immigrants have contributed over £5 billion to the UK economy. That's far more than they've taken back in the forms of benefits and other services. We're not going to run out of space in any time in the UK. So actually, there's a lot of homes in the UK that are currently unoccupied and empty. Immigrants fill massive sectors of jobs where we need skilled people to fill on, particularly the NHS, in farming, in sort of lots of areas of business and areas of social life. We rely heavily on migration and people coming in to fill empty roles. Immigration brings a big variety of cultural diversity, so in terms of food, music, food, art, so that's a really positive benefit of migration. And also, again, it helps with economic growth, bringing new businesses, bringing taxes, and obviously bringing more diversity to the UK. The downside to migration, again, some of these arguments I think are a bit weak, but there is a drain on resources. That is true. So migrants, when people come to the UK, they often will have more children, and that puts a short-term drain on resources. So that's extra school places, that's extra NHS services being used. However, in the long run, those children will grow up, pay taxes, contribute more to the system. We've already said the first point is that migrant populations often contribute more in taxes than they receive. So actually, it's a very short-term drain. Immigrants are only coming to the UK to get benefits, and this is quite a right-wing argument, often used in tabloids, but there is an argument that the benefit system is being used by people from abroad. Generally not always and really the case. Again, immigrants make no contribution to the UK and add problems to communities. Again, I would question some of these statements. Again, I took these from textbooks and other online sources, but again, I would say the contribution made by migrants is quite positive. There are problems which can come from clashes and culture clash, but again, that's maybe not exclusively the result of immigration, but maybe the reaction of people from British or living in the UK and how they respond to immigration. And there's not enough space. Again, that argument we've already said is not true. There are a lot of empty homes in the UK. So these are the key arguments we have for and against migration. And the last one, it says prepared to work for low wages and take jobs. Again, quite a tabloidy argument that they're coming to steal our jobs, but the reality is that a lot of the jobs they fill are ones that are vacant, are empty, and need people to work in them. So they're not stealing jobs, they're occupying jobs that no one else is taking, or they're providing skills that people in the UK don't have. So there we have it. So a very brief introduction to Britishness, identity, migration, and then some pros and cons. And those pros and cons are going to be key for potential 8-mark questions, 4-mark questions on the benefits of migration. As always, I hope this helped. Thanks for watching and take care.